I am Coop772 and this is a video review of the Nerf Elite Stryfe. I'm pretty excited for this blaster personally, so let's get right into it. Included with the Stryfe is the box, obviously, the manual, a few Elite darts, and the actual blaster. Note, one 6-round magazine comes inside the blaster, and no front piece or stock is included. I purchased this on Amazon.com for about $20 US. The Stryfe runs on 4 AA batteries. To get to the battery compartment, you remove the single screw here. Alrighty, I have had an opportunity to play with this Stryfe, so here's my review. Beginning with the coloring and ergonomics and external stuff. Pretty satisfied with the colors. This is the blue with white and orange internals as with all of the other Elite guns, and I'm pretty happy with that. They do have the digital little pattern on it to break up the bits of blue. Going over the external features starting from the front. This muzzle is compatible with other in-strike attachments if you wanted to add those. However, because of the weird shape of this blaster, it's not exactly centered, so your stuff is going to look a little weird. To point that out, hopefully this view it will show you. This bit of the blaster is almost entirely flat, and on this side it's kind of popping out. That's due to internals, your batteries, your motors, and other internal components. But because of that, your muzzle is not actually centered, so if you added something thicker like the Recon barrel, that's going to be sort of wide and kind of pop out and look a bit odd. However, if you're not a stickler for detail, I'm sure you won't even notice that. Moving slightly back, there is a front sling mount up here. This is a very small blaster, so I'd be surprised if you wanted to actually run a 2-point sling. There is a tactical rail down here for front barrel, little bipod, vertical grip, or whatever you wanted to add. I may be running my NH1 laser attachment, or I'm sorry, my flashlight attachment. Moving back into the magazine well, this is pretty much a standard magazine well, however the magazine release is slightly different. This is not a side magazine release like the Longshot and the Recon and a lot of other ones. This is an ambidextrous magazine release located here. And it's pretty cool about this button because you can use it like a standard ambidextrous switch like the G36 or the AK-47 variant, that's real steel, where you would use your releasing hand and hit it with your thumb and pull your mag, but you can also use your firing hand and kind of pop out your middle finger and hit it as well. That wouldn't be doable on one of those guns that actually has the ambidextrous magazine release, so I'm actually quite satisfied with this because you can release it with either hand. And again, it is ambidextrous, so if you play left-handed, you won't even notice the difference, unlike the Longshot or something where it's pretty much only righties. Up top is the access door to prevent jams, or I'm sorry, to unjam your blaster. And as usual, if your access door is up, you cannot rev the motors. There is an electronic switch located here that is then deactivated when you shut it. Up top is another in-strike rails for sights and other stuff. I really don't use sights for Nerf guns because they simply are not accurate enough to really benefit from that. But if you want to add a big Longshot scope on it, you definitely can. Moving to the trigger, pretty standard trigger, not much to say, although there is quite a bit of friction due to an internal lock preventing you from pulling the trigger if the motors are not revving. I will very likely be taking that out, and I will be making a modification tutorial for this blaster, and I'll probably be covering that. But I have noticed a lot of friction, and if you try to pull the trigger very quickly, with darts in the magazine of course, there will be a lot of friction, like that lock is not working under proper tolerances. But that may be a limit, I'm not sure. Directly below the firing trigger is the motor revving trigger, and that is meant to be activated with your middle finger, and then obviously your trigger finger will be up into the trigger guard. To demonstrate that left-handed, you rev the motors and then pull the trigger. Getting to the grip, this is very similar in size to the Hailfire grip, so if you're approving of that, you'll very likely enjoy how this feels. However, me personally, I do not like this grip. It is a little too small for me. If you've never seen me in person, I'm actually 6'3", so I'm very big, and my hand is proportional to my large body, so I have a very large hand, and I'm unhappy with the handle size of this particular blaster, along with the Hailfire actually. The older in-strike guns like the Recon and the Longshot, and some of the other blasters that have a very similar shell are a little bit larger than this and feel much more comfortable, and ordinarily that would not be super important, but when you have to have dexterity on your your middle finger to pull your motor switch, the comfort of the grip is a bigger part of the comfort of the blaster in operation. So operating the blaster is a little bit more difficult than it should be, just because I'm diverting energy and attention into balancing the gun because of the odd backing here, and then it takes a little bit more effort to actually operate the trigger and the motor release switch. But if you have a smaller hand or you aren't such a stickler, you might not notice that, I don't know. And in the bottom of the grip here is another sling mount, so if you wanted to run a 2-point sling, go for it. And in the back here is your stock attachment piece. There's not much mechanics going on back here, so that's not really essential. They added that purely for the attachment of a stock. This is compatible with all in-strike stocks, so if you wanted to add something go for it. So overall, I'm very happy with the cosmetics and ergonomics of this blaster. There should be some things changed, or I would like them to change a few things, but obviously they're not going to. And I won't be modding like the grip. I won't be grip replacing it or anything like that. That'd be way too much work for just a tiny little error. But overall, I'm very happy with the blaster. I have been excited for this blaster actually, or something like it. A clip-fed flywheel gun that doesn't have a super long barrel like the Raven, because that's just not good for range. So now I'm going to show you the Stryfe firing. As you can see, the first set was fired at a slower pace, and that's to get max range. And when you pull the trigger a lot faster, like in my second firing test, the flywheels don't have an opportunity to fully boost up again to their max RPM, which decreases range. So if you do that, you'll probably notice the first dart going to max range and then slowly dragging behind. And that's just because the low voltage these are running on. If you mod the blaster to a higher voltage, that's going to be less apparent because the higher voltage will activate the motors a little faster. So I'm very excited for this. I will very likely be using this for HVZ. I'm going to add a stock and maybe some other stuff in my flashlight and H1 attachment, as well as paint it and modify it and all of that stuff, because I am a modder. I'm not just a little HVZ reviewer. My final opinion on the blaster: for $20 US, I'm extremely satisfied with this blaster. If you're paying a different rate, you're going to have to decide whether or not that's worth it to you. But if you're looking into the Raven or something else, it's definitely a close call. This is smaller and cheaper than the Raven, so I really wouldn't see why you wouldn't buy this over the Raven unless you like the bullpup. The bullpup design is great for a firearm. However, with a Nerf gun, you're only hurting range with that super long barrel, so that is something to consider. The shorter barrel is only going to help you, because with a flywheel system, barrels are not really an issue. But that's my conclusion of the Stryfe. Overall, I'm personally really satisfied with it. I'm not going to tell you go buy this one, and if you ask this one or the Recon or something, I can't give you an answer. My reviews are designed to point out all of the features of the blaster, show you it firing and show you it operating, so you can make an educated decision. There's not a single best Nerf gun, and anyone who tells you that there is doesn't really understand what best actually means. I will definitely be modifying this and making a modification tutorial, so if you're interested in seeing how to modify it, look for an annotation on the screen. That will be up like a week after I upload my initial video, so if you're watching this right after upload, it won't be there. But that concludes my review of the Nerf Stryfe. Again, super happy with it. Not much else to say, so thanks for watching.